whole opportunity to kind of recognize people and to bring them back for those kind of events. It's really special.
Important.
Ready to go?
We are ready to go. Yes, we are.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know Marsha Bradley? Mm-hmm. Do you know who she is? A tree fell on her car. Yeah. She used to work for my husband.
Hello, and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County branch of the American Association of University Women, one of the civic partners for this show. With me in the studio is Ann Carville, an education blogger, and Joanne Chambers, the superintendent of Potsdam Central School. Joanne, welcome to North Country Matters.
Thank you.
This is your first time here, but we're going to have you back, so
thank you.
Get used to that thought. Joanne is the newly appointed superintendent of Potsdam Central. She's previously been the Potsdam High School principal, and before that a teacher at the AAK Middle School. So you're very familiar with the district, and the district is very familiar with you. So it was probably a pretty easy move to the big office.
It's been a very nice transition. I've actually been in the district for 21 years.
Yeah.
Both of my children went through the system and graduated when I was the high school principal. I was actually at the elementary school as a principal for 4 years and a teacher in the middle school for 10 years. So I am very familiar. I know the families, I know the staff, the faculty, the community. So it's been a really nice transition.
Right. Well, your Potsdam is completing an $18 million renovation package, including a new exterior wall at the high school, which I happen to love. I think it makes it look really, really nice. I know there's been a few complaints. They miss the bricks, but they probably wouldn't miss it if the bricks were falling off, would they?
Right.
So is there anything that remains to be done on the renovation package, or is it pretty well complete, Joanne?
Well, we're really in the final stage, closeout, punch list. These are all terms that I'm learning now as a superintendent. We actually are under budget in the project, which is very unusual. So we've had a lot of, been able to add a lot of additional projects, small projects in the last few months. So mostly that's the work that's going on now. That includes new carpeting in the middle school and high school library, a lot of exterior painting, renovation of our technology area was an add-on, and renovating the high school bathrooms. So all of that work is wrapping up now, and I think probably by December we'll have the project completely done.
Oh, wow, that's great. And it's always nice to come in under budget and get a few frills, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So.
Well, I have some personnel questions.
Sure.
As we all know, you're the new superintendent. There's a new elementary principal, and there was a search for a high school principal. And I'm sure there are other new employees, teacher and staff, et cetera.
Right.
So can you update us on
Absolutely. You know, when Mr. Brady left, one of the things he said he was most proud of were the people that he had hired. And I really got to experience that this summer. We hired 15 new employees from August 10th until I started, or when I started August 10th until the first day of school. So it was really very busy on the personnel side. Hired some wonderful new teachers. A new fourth grade teacher named Heather Hinckley from California came with some experience, which was wonderful. Tanya Sharon, who's a new special education teacher. Hope I get them all. Ryan Carroll, who's a new sixth grade teacher. I probably shouldn't have started down this path. Jaro Filiatra, who's a new eighth grade social studies teacher. Rebecca Pentelow is a new reading teacher. And I think those are all for the instructional staff. We do have a new elementary principal. Her name is Shannon Pitcher-Boyer, and she's wonderful. She comes to us with a lot of experience, real strength in reading instruction, which is so critical in elementary school, and also a background in special education. So she has a lot of good strategies. She can lead the staff staff there. Also important to Shannon, character education, and she talks a lot about wellness, not only student wellness, but staff taking good care of themselves so that they can take care of the children. We did have, unfortunately, an unsuccessful search for a new high school principal. There aren't a lot of people going into administration right now, and we were a little bit late going out for the position to replace me. So we only had 5 applicants. A shared decision-making committee met, reviewed the applications. They had 3 candidates to be interviewed. 1 declined. He'd accepted another job, so then there were 2. And really, at the conclusion of those 2 interviews, the committee felt we really couldn't make a decision at this time. There was not someone that the committee was comfortable with. So we have an interim principal right now, Randy Johnson, wonderful man. He's a retired administrator, worked in several different schools, but most recently at Colton Pierpont. And he's helping us out for a little bit, and we may have to, unfortunately, do a second interim first part of the year, but we'll go out aggressively in March and hopefully find that last member of our administrative team.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Important decision.
It is.
You know, Joanne, you mentioned the new elementary principal and being interested in character education, and the bucket filling program has been at the elementary school for quite a number of years and has been very successful. Those kids are starting to transition now into the middle school. Are you seeing a carryover of the program as you developed it in the elementary school, and is it helping in the middle school? We all know what middle school kids go through in terms of their development. It's kind of a fraught time for kids. So
absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was recently at the PTA meeting, and I was asking the parents there, tell me what's good about Potsdam Central, what are some areas where we have some challenges. As a new superintendent, I think it's important to hear those things. And a couple of the parents said, you know, that bucket filling has been wonderful, and my child is now in 6th grade, and we really see the carryover, that they take good care of each other, that they're kind, they understand that the importance of good character. So that's just an anecdotal example, but I do think those values are really starting to pay off.
Good, and it certainly changes the character of a school when people have that attitude. Absolutely. And when they're watching out for one another, that's for sure. So along with the new faces, you also have some new programs. So tell us a little bit about what some of the new opportunities that you're able to offer in the 3 buildings.
Sure. At our middle school, I'm very excited about a few of the new classes. Our staff have stepped up and saw a need with some students having too many study halls, so they got some creative juices flowing and put forth a few proposals last year. One is a class called CSI, which is hands-on forensic science.
Always
absolutely, absolutely for middle school students. Another wilderness survival course, a teacher who had an interest in that, and certainly where we live, it's important for our students to know how to be safe in the outdoors. I'm also very pleased, it's not really a class, but we are offering recess this year for every student every day in 5th through 8th grade.
Wow, that is so important.
It absolutely is, and I give our middle school principal, Mark Bennett, a lot of credit for that. He's very good at scheduling and figuring things out, and so every day after lunch, students are taken outside for some supervised play, and they've already seen a great difference just in the attention in the afternoon, giving students that break during the day.
And one of the things that we know from research is how important it is to keep kids connected to the outdoors, and there's a lot of important benefits that come from that, so I'm happy to hear about that program.
Sure.
And you're also doing more with computer science classes, I understand, at the middle school too, giving kids some hands-on time.
A little bit of that, yes. And at the high school this year, we're offering a new course through Project Lead the Way, which is our pre-engineering sequence. And this course is actually computer integrated manufacturing. And that was chosen specifically because our teacher recognized a need with our local manufacturers. They're having an awful time finding CNC machinists. And so in response to that, he wrote a grant. Actually, the Corning Foundation was able to help supply some of the hardware that class needs. And I'm very excited to have that class available for our students this year.
You know, it's interesting. Last year, I was able to go to the Fulton Montgomery Community College and look through some of they've got some of the hands-on engineering, and I was chatting with one of the teachers, and he said the problem they have is getting students coming in who have been exposed to that in the high school grades, and he said it's such a wide open field, and they can place every student that they can put in, but kids aren't coming in with either the interest or the background.
Right.
So that's very good. One question I would have on that, given the importance of STEM opportunities later on, is this something that there's no gender component to? You're making sure all the students are exposed to it?
They are, though I have to say it's been a challenge to get girls to sign up, and something that we've done some things like Canton College offers a Women in Engineering Day.
Right,
So
right. Actually, AUW was a co-sponsor
wonderful,
last year, so
wonderful.
we saw some of the kids that
we
came in.
brought high school students, and this
Yeah.
year we're hoping to bring more middle school
Good,
students and get them
good.
early on, because the girls tend to be very successful and enjoy the classes once they're in them, but sometimes they don't know enough about engineering to
Yeah.
know that it's an interest of theirs.
Right.
So-
Well, I saw a lot of excitement we had about 140 girls from 11 school
Wonderful.
districts who came, and it was very exciting. And so we're looking forward to doing that again.
Very
So
good. We'll
great.
be there.
I'll look for the
Potsdam will be there for
students.
sure.
Thanks.
Well, now on to something that I think you'll enjoy talking about, controversy. The 3 through 8 New York State tests that are linked to the Common Core state standards. So, of course, each year these tests are administered in the midst of quite a bit of controversy and quite a bit of opting out. My question to you is, how did Potsdam do this past year? Results, I guess, came out in August in comparison to this region and in comparison to the state. And the second part of the question really is that the governor has called for a comprehensive reboot of the Common Core standards. And where do you think that's going? So,
Well, interesting question. So Potsdam students did fairly well, relatively well, among the top in the region and above the state average, as is pretty common with our middle school students. They do tend to do very well. I understand the Common Core review is, there is a panel that's been formed. The Commissioner of Education is on the panel, so that's maybe I think a good sign that the new commissioner is very interested in trying to build bridges and restore some faith, I think, in education. I think a lot of teachers would agree the Common Core standards are good and they're necessary. We know that 30 to 40% of our students that enter the SUNY system have to take remedial courses before they can start to take courses for credit.
Right.
And that's unacceptable. So we really do need to raise standards.
Right.
I wish it had been implemented a little differently, and I think a lot of teachers and parents will tell you the same thing. It was every grade level all at the same time. And so there was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of miscommunication. Teachers thought that they had to teach this mandated curriculum, which was not true. They didn't have to use these instructional materials. Now we're told those were examples.
Right.
So there was a lot of controversy, a lot of stress. I've never seen teachers as stressed as they were, and that, of course, filters down to children. Not a good learning environment for anyone. So I wish this review had happened at the front end so that we really could get the practitioners' input on that. I think teachers in the classroom every day have a lot to say about that, what is good for kids. Many teachers do support the Common Core standards, and they see the value in it, and they see the kids really have risen to the occasion and can do it. But when they're being asked at 4th grade to be tested on something and they haven't had first, second, and third grade leading up to that, there was a lot of frustration in those early years. So I'm hopeful that this review panel will give everyone a chance to look at the standards more closely, see the value in them, and provide that input from practitioners. I don't know if there are parents on the committee. I was hoping to see
There
that
are
as well.
some, actually.
Are there a
Yeah,
few?
yeah.
Okay.
There's some from Buffalo area. There's some parents.
Absolutely,
I've
and I
read
know
that,
there's a
yeah.
superintendent on there as well. So I hope that really the intent is to listen and to take that feedback and make changes if changes are warranted.
Right. Well, generally speaking then, although 1/3 of the students in the state, and probably Potsdam as well, were proficient on these tests that are tied to the standards, that means 2/3 weren't.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
where do you see it going in terms of getting to where you'd like it to be in terms of proficiency?
Well, it's going to take time, for sure. As our teachers become more familiar, as students come with those prerequisite skills, I think we're going to see the results naturally improve. When the standards first came out, one of the activities that our teachers went through at professional development is they looked at a single mathematic standard for algebra and then traced it back for every grade level leading up to 9th grade. And they were actually very impressed to see that the seeds of these concepts were being introduced in the early grades, and they followed a logical progression all the way up through ninth grade. But unfortunately, with the testing happening immediately, our students didn't have the benefit at first of all of those years leading up to the standards. So I think with every year, as students come with the prerequisite skills in place, we're going to see the results improve.
My final point on this, Joanne, is the governor in the budget got through another push to tie teacher and principal evaluation even more closely to the results of these tests. And while you say teachers maybe for the most part support the standards, they maybe do not support tying their evaluation to those test results. So what do you see happening with regards to the governor saying there should be an even stronger tie between the tests and the evaluations?
It's hard to say what will happen, but I do think that was the undoing of the Common Core standards. We've had testing in New York State for a long time. In fact, New York led the way with Regents exams as an exit exam long before many other states did. We understand accountability, we understand high expectations for students, but it was the standards and the assessments and this evaluation system all at the same time. I was recently at a conference, and there were many officials there from the state education department who said, we don't understand the growth scores. We recognize that we have to look at this and understand this. If we have a teacher that the principal who's observing that teacher says this is a highly effective teacher, and this state-provided score is coming back ineffective, we have a problem. And so they've recently put in an appeal system for that kind of scenario where we can the teacher can appeal that growth score if it's not matching with what the principal is saying in his or her evaluation. So I do think the tangling of those two things has really been problematic. I don't think any teacher would say they don't feel they're accountable. We are public employees. We are agents of the state. We understand that the public expects us to do our job and do it well. But the measure, how to assess that, I don't think anybody has a good answer for that yet, other than the observation of the principal in the classroom who can be the instructional leader, give that feedback. Teachers love feedback. I've never had a teacher after an observation not want constructive criticism. How can I get better? What can I do? There's just a hunger for that. But this score seems so disconnected from what we see day in and day out in the classroom.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the things that I'm going to be particularly looking for with the next set of tests is how this year's third graders do, because they're the ones who got introduced to it right at the beginning. I have a third grade granddaughter, and so I've been learning the Common Core math standards with her. She's been bringing things home, and I have to tell you, I'm so impressed with the breadth of the math instruction and the kinds of concepts that they're being introduced to, and they're taking like a duck to water because it's all they've known. But
that's right.
For my middle school granddaughter, it's a little bit of I feel a little fish out of water because I started in one and now I'm in another. But I think this year's third graders are really going to do very well because they're the ones who have the complete background for that first set of tests, don't they?
Absolutely. And with every year, the teachers will become more proficient.
Right.
We've done a lot of work in giving teachers time to really make the standards their own and design curriculum that makes sense to them. And that's been a lot of work on our teachers' part. So with every year, they're owning that to a greater extent and really making it their own.
And a couple of years ago, we had Steve Todd in when he worked as the assistant superintendent for our BOCES instead of leading the Jeff Lewis BOCES as he does now. He talked to us about the grant that BOCES got to have instructors be pulled out of the classroom and become specialists and then come back to the schools. So there's a lot of support that's in place, isn't there?
There's a lot of support, and there's a lot of interest in building teacher leadership, which there's no way as a principal I can be an expert in every subject. So to pull people out of the classroom, to give them compensation and time to do that has been really a wonderful model, and it's unfortunate that it was a grant, and so now that grant is over and we can't at this point fund that same kind of model, but I think there's interest in doing that. And for these teachers, it was a great opportunity to step out of the classroom, maybe experience leadership, and a couple of them are actually looking at administration as a result. So it's got that other benefit in a time when we don't have a lot of good administrators. It's great to have that
It's nice
feeder
to have
system.
that in-house expert, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So one of the things that's gone along with the testing has been the opt-out movement, which a year ago there were 27 in Potsdam who opted out. This last spring there was 153. So that obviously that's got a very political part to it because of the way the governor and the teachers' unions have kind of gone head-to-head and things like that. Do you think that the opt-outs are going to continue to increase, or do you think that here in Potsdam that's more been an outside influence, and once people get some more comfort with what's going on inside, parents are going to feel more comfortable keeping their students in the testing mode? What's your kind of gut reaction to that, Joanne?
I hope that's true, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to just happen.
No.
And so as the instructional leader of the district, that's something that I'm very, very interested in, trying to work with people. I think the message from parents was loud and clear, that the tests were not acceptable. They were too long. There was additional field testing questions built into it. Children were frustrated. We heard stories of children crying. So the parents responded in the way that they can, which was
vote with their feet.
They vote with their feet, and
exactly.
I absolutely respect that right to do that. But I think there has been a response from the state education department. We're told the tests this year will be shorter. They're minimizing the field testing. They've heard some of those.
And a new test company.
And a new test company, so they fired the old test company. So that's a very, very positive response that parents were successful, I would say, in the opt-out, but I would like to invite them back to the table to now talk about what we use these tests for, beyond teacher evaluation, which is already controversial.
Right. But to actually measure progress.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and we get very good information back. It's really remarkable, the level of detail, and we use it two ways. One is on the individual student level. So I think about, because my background is high school, really our outcome is the English Regents, the Algebra Regents, and these tests are really benchmark saying, is that child on track to achieve that exit outcome that every parent wants their child to graduate from high school. So it gives us good individual information on a student so that we can provide supports and hopefully get them back on that trajectory to pass the Regents when they get to high school. But it also gives us good programmatic information so we can look at a whole grade level and see where are our students falling down or where are they excelling, and then go back to our curriculum and say, all right, perhaps we need to devote some more time on this, or we need to look at a new strategy for addressing this standard, because even our best students were not doing well on this particular item. So I think we need to do a better job of helping parents understand the good information we get from these assessments so that hopefully they'll support them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you had mentioned earlier about 40% of the graduates who go on to SUNY schools need remediation. So we know that there are definitely areas where we're not doing the job that we want to do. And that kind of brings us to graduation rates in college and work readiness. According to numbers that were released by the New York State Education Department in June, 88.7% of Potsdam students who began ninth grade in 2008 graduated in 2012. I don't know what 88.7% really translates to real live human beings, but there are always kids that you lose along the way or maybe need to take extra time for whatever reason. And so we don't have the best graduation rate in the county. We certainly don't have the worst, but for every student who doesn't graduate on time, that's a problem, and it's
Absolutely.
a problem for their family. So in terms of that, what are you thinking about doing to address that? I mean, certainly coming from the high school principal's office, this is something that you lived very closely.
Absolutely. At the high school, that was job one. Every day we worked hands-on to make sure every student was engaged in school, had a personalized path, and stayed in school. We actually had a 7-year run without a senior getting to senior year and not graduating. So we had 100% of our kids who got to senior year graduate, which is something I'm really, really proud of. We really pulled out all stops. But some of the challenges are really, really difficult to overcome. And one of the major things we're seeing as I analyze our students who don't graduate are significant mental health issues. And we provide
Those are things outside of your control.
And it becomes our issue, and we want to support families. We want to work with the agencies in the county. We want to provide that support. We sometimes offer home instruction. I've looked at online learning. We're not quite there yet, but I think anytime we can provide an individualized plan for a student who has a challenge like that, we really need to be doing it. I often say to families, I can't press pause. I can't press pause on your high school career while we get this issue dealt with, because school's going to move on. And so the students we lose, and there are not a lot of them, but even one is too many, it is often because of a challenge like that something happens in their life and we just can't stop high school while we address that and come back. But we really encourage students to go to summer school if they get behind, and so that's a real push. As I said, I think we need to explore online learning for those individual cases. We have a student this year who's expecting a baby, and trying to keep her in school and on track for graduation is going to be challenging. So if we had a tool like online courses in those situations, I do think it would really help.
And that actually brings up a good point, Joanne, because we know that pregnant and parenting students have a whole raft of issues that they're trying to deal with. And yet, thanks to Title IX and other laws, we're expected to give them the exact same opportunity. And sometimes we have to be a little creative about how we make that happen. And I know Potsdam does a good job of you're kind of ahead of a lot of schools in terms of your adherence to Title IX and how you're working on that. So, that is very encouraging to hear that you are, you're aware of that and that you're really trying to figure out how you can make that student be a success, because nothing will slow you down like being in that situation.
Absolutely.
And you need a lot of external support to be successful.
Absolutely. And so we are committed to that. And I would say there are 15 different situations like that every year where the student has a challenge. And I liked your word creativity, because I think that's what we do. We try to find a way. And for some students, it means being there more than 4 years.
Yeah.
I always say one of the most important lessons I learned as an elementary principal was not every child was ready to begin school at the same time. Some came in at 4 reading Harry Potter, and some were 7 and still working on toileting issues. And at the high school, not every student is ready to be done at the same time. Some of them are well on their way after 3 years, and really we want to accelerate graduation, and others really need a little bit more time. So I wish we could get past the stigma of a 4-year plan, because that is very much embedded in the high school culture. But I wish it were.
Wouldn't
different.
that be like trying to get past the stigma of leaving summers off to go home and hay?
Well, true, really. And in all seriousness, this is a different time, and schools have failed to respond. High schools in particular have failed to respond to some of those changes in our society. So.
It's
those
really
are
hard to make systemic change when it is something that is so embedded in your culture.
It is.
So.
And yet there are states that have gone to a year-round model with
New Mexico is one. I have 2 nieces that grew up in New Mexico, and when they were in elementary school, the state switched to a year-round model.
Right.
And they got a very good education as
Absolutely.
a result.
It makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Taking 2 months off from learning doesn't necessarily, but...
Donna, do we have time for a few questions?
We are almost out of time. We've got maybe for one quick one, and then we need to wrap up.
Okay, the only thing I was going to say is in terms of all of the red tape that has hit public schools across the state in recent years, and every school district had to have a teacher evaluation plan that had to be negotiated, and the amount of work that went into this. And then the governor says it was all a waste of time across the board. So all of these things are happening, the tests, the standards, the teacher evaluation that we're told was a complete waste of everybody's time. Has anything good come out of it?
I do think a little bit of good has come out of that. One thing I would say of all of that is I see a level of collaboration between school districts that is really unprecedented.
Good.
As a teacher myself, often I didn't even know who my counterparts were in neighboring districts. And now there's much more of a sense we're in this together. Maybe Tough Times does that to people, but I think teachers are collaborating online. They're meeting together. They're trying to lighten their workload by sharing sharing that burden a little bit. So I would say that that's definitely a good one. And even the APPR, Teacher Evaluation Plan, teachers are looking at student data in a I think, a more serious way, trying to analyze where students fall off track in a way that maybe they knew it instinctively before, but now they've got a little bit more information. So that would be good. But there is a lot of red tape. You're right. There's a lot of regulation, and a lot of my time is spent on that kind of thing, when I would rather be in classrooms working with teachers or students.
Which leads us to the last question,
Sure.
which is if you would share with the public your long and short-term vision for the Potsdam Central School District.
Sure, I would be happy to. So this year, my short-term vision is to listen and learn. You know, I think as a new superintendent, it would be a mistake for me to say, well, I've been in the school for 21 years, I know what everybody thinks, because I don't think that's true. So I didn't come in with any plan for here are the things we're going to change or do, because I think we have a wonderful school district, and I'm really taking this year to listen and learn. So I've set up individual meetings with administrators, board members, working in small groups with parents and teachers, our students, and to ask everybody the same general questions: what's good, what's working, what shouldn't we change, what are some challenges, what are some big ideas you have? Because sometimes I think when we've been through a tough financial time, as we have been, people stop asking, or they stop saying what I'd like to do if money and time were no object. So I think just asking that question and sort of getting it out to the universe is very good. I think we need to continue to work on Common Core implementation for sure. STEM education, those are always priorities. So the things that we've been working on, I'd like to sustain, but I'd also like to keep an open mind and see what I learned this year from people.
Well, thank you.
Well, Joanne, thank you. As always, our time flies by, and it's been a pleasure to have you in here, and we will definitely be inviting you back. So I hope you will come back, and we can always have the fun of talking about budget in the spring.
Oh, there you go.
So our time is up. These conversations are a production of North Country Matters, produced here in the studios of WCKN on the campus of Clarkson University. This show is a civic collaboration between the St. Lawrence County branch of the American Association of University Women, the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, and the Communication and Media Department here at Clarkson University. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters.